You know, people in Australia, they think, oh, BYD's plug-in hybrids, that must be where it's at. I should buy a plug-in hybrid. But that's not what the market's saying. The market's saying, maybe that's not a good idea. BYD's plug-in hybrid sales are down 12%. Yeah. BYD's EV sales are up 42%. Now, these are worldwide numbers. It shows you the trend worldwide is not towards plug-in hybrids. It's actually towards fully electric. BYD sales, they have delivered a record for this part of the year. And even though there's been a bit of controversy around BYD lately, which is probably fairly made, BYD is still doing incredibly well. Here are their sales figures for the month. Here are their numbers. Which model sold the best? We'll actually have a look at each model, which ones people are actually buying. And I'll tell you my thoughts on which, if you should buy BYD at all. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Thank you to our YouTube members. If you'd like to become one, you get access to some additional videos. I'll put a link in the description. BYD sales breakdown. Well, before we look at the breakdown of their sales, let's have a look at their actual sales. BYD just delivered 382,500 vehicles in June. That is a new high for this month of the year. Now, their sales are good, and it does mark the 7th consecutive month of new highs. But as you can see from this chart from CNF Post, BYD's EV and plug-in hybrid sales not growing at the kind of speed they were the last couple of years, which is to be expected for a company of this size. I think the sales numbers are still good. Is BYD in crisis like other YouTubers are saying right now? Well, there's no real evidence that BYD are cooking the books. That's what people are saying right now. They're telling Sam, you got to make a video on this. BYD are cooking the books. People in China are saying they're doing this. Guys, hold your horses. I'm not going to make a video on what is, I think, pure speculation. When I report on the stuff with BYD, I usually try and report on it because I think good sources have provided information with, not just YouTubers wanting to make some money. Anyhow, BYD sales year-on-year increase. What was it compared to June of last year? It was an increase of 12%. So yeah, I mean, 12% is better than no percent, put it that way. One part of BYD's business though is growing really fast and incredibly well. That's BYD's commercial vehicles. BYD sold 5,000 commercial vehicles, which was an increase of 243% from the same month last year. You can see this chart here. BYD's commercial vehicles have been a pretty big priority and focus for the company, and their enormous increase is good to see. Passenger vehicles. BYD sold 207,000 fully electric cars, right? That's a pretty good number, 207,000, because it shows you that more than half of BYD sales are actually fully electric. And in fact, EV sales have risen far more than plug-in hybrids. There's all this hype right now around BYD's plug-in hybrids, which I don't think is justified. I think there's better plug-in hybrids you can buy. And I've been attacked for saying this, but that's true. People get emotional about the brands that they buy and they want to support their own emotions by attacking me. It's not going to make you, it's not going to actually make you right. It's going to make you probably more emotional. But anyway, I think BYD's electric cars are better. And as you can see here, most people are not buying a plug-in hybrid from BYD. They're actually buying an EV. EV sales up 42.5%. That's impressive. Plug-in hybrid sales fell by 12.5%. Isn't that interesting, guys? 170,000 plug-in hybrids sold, yeah? And 207,000 EVs. 40% increase in EV sales, 42.5%, and plug-in hybrid sales are down 12.5%. That's in spite of the fact that plug-in hybrids have received enormous incentives. I mean, BYD's been discounting them massively. They're not even denying the fact they are. So it is interesting to see here. I've said this many times, a mature car market generally moves away from hybrids. Well, not generally, always does, and more EVs are sold. So we're going to see this more and more in China over the next few years. The market's going to move away from plug-in hybrids to fully electric. What models sold well? Well, first of all, the Seagull continues to sell really, really, really well. Seagull sales were 51,300, which was less than last month, but still very, very good. And the BYD Seal sold pretty well also. There was a total of 44,400 BYD Seal sold, which means it's the third best-selling BYD model. And that meant a 73.5% increase in the sales of the BYD Seal. The second best-selling model was what I just said before, the BYD Seagull. And the BYD Chin family, this is predominantly a plug-in hybrid. Its sales actually decreased by 36%. 36% decline to 44,000 deliveries. The C-Line, BYD C-Line, sales of the C-Line went up pretty enormously, in fact, by a 400% increase. Month-on-month increase of 2.9%, but still, yeah, the C-Line family is selling extremely well with 35,000 deliveries. That was followed up by the BYD UN family. UN cars, so BYD Atto 3 is included in that, Atto 2, 26,000 deliveries of those for a year-on-year decrease of 29%. BYD Dolphin sales actually had a nice little spike, year-on-year increase for 111% to 23,000 sales of the Dolphin. There's a new version of the Dolphin, by the way, coming within 6 months, I believe, and a new version of the BYD Atto 3. Some pretty significant changes are coming, I've been hearing. BYD Han. BYD Han sales were, well, not too bad, 18,900 for a decrease of 12.7% versus last year. BYD Tang still selling actually extremely well. The Tang, by the way, guys, the new Han L and the Tang L, they are the versions of BYD's cars, the only two versions with the new Blade battery that can charge it up to 1,000 kilowatt, 1,000 volt architecture. BYD Tang, 18,000 deliveries, increase of 15% versus the same month last year. BYD Chaser 05, 11,800 were sold in June, which was a decrease of 64%. BYD Shia, that's their MPV, they sold 5,000 of those, which was a decline of 29%. I'm not a big fan of the Shia. I think it looks a bit old school, kind of like an internal combustion vehicle. Anyhow, the BYD O2, 274 units were sold, decrease of 53%. BYD, the brand. So looking at breaking down the brands, CNN Post says BYD's brand saw a month-on-month decrease of 2.3%, but a year-on-year increase of 3.5%. So BYD's brand, the actual BYD brand itself, not really growing versus last year, but Denza sales, they have grown significantly, 15,800, which was growth of 28.6%. Fangcheng Bao, that brand is doing extremely well. They sold 19,000 Fangcheng Bao cars, which is good for BYD because that's a more expensive vehicle. That means growth of 605% for the Fangcheng Bao brand. So that's a big, big positive for them. That included 12,000 of the Thai, 4,900 of the Bao 5, and 2,000 of the Bao 8. And those models, I believe the Bao 5 and the Bao 8 are probably coming to Australia and Europe. BYD's ultra-luxury sub-brand sales were probably a little bit disappointing for the company. 205 vehicles were sold in June, a year-on-year decrease of 51%. But all in all, BYD, I think, had a pretty damn successful month once again. They are certainly maybe not quite on the way to 6 million sales as we thought they might hit this year, more likely on track for about 5.5 million, which is still incredible considering the fact that, it was only a few years ago that BYD was only selling 400,000 cars a year. All in all, there's been a bit of drama around BYD lately, and some of it is self-inflicted from the company, some of the stuff they've said and done. It's been a bit unprofessional, but still, they're absolutely crushing it. And their rivals are obviously, probably having a tough time, some of them, for good reason. I think BYD, though, might see a big improvement in their vehicle sales next year when they begin selling. I'm going to guess all models will eventually come with the new BYD Blade batteries. They've got two different versions. They've got the one version that can charge at 1,000 kilowatt, and the energy density is improved. I think it's 175 watt hours per kilogram, compared to BYD's existing Blade battery, which is about 160 to 165 watt hours per kilogram. But then there's the more energy dense BYD Blade battery, which is meant to be coming within the next 6 months. That's about 192 to 194 watt hours per kilogram. That's the battery that's going to transform BYD sales. They're going to get much more range. Average BYD is probably going to have an additional, probably close to 15 to 20% more range. That'll be a big, big boost You know, you get a BYD, has an 80 kilowatt hour battery, you're looking at plus maybe 650 kilometers of range. That's that sweet spot where it's going to be a really good car, not just for local trips, but also for very long driving road trips, etc. But the big number one takeaway is this: BYD's plug-in hybrid sales are going down. Their EV sales are growing significantly. Thanks for watching.